Hey, 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 welcome back to another episode. Today I want to talk about parenting and just want to talk about a little bit about parenting. I was just last night, my 11-year-old and I and my hubby, we were all snuggled up and we were going to watch Inside Out 2, the new movie. And we watched the first one and it's about feelings and emotions, right? And so um hubby fell asleep, but my son and I we enjoyed the movie together, and we had some interesting conversations throughout the movie and after the movie. He's 11 and he's not experiencing, puberty just yet, but you can tell it's starting. He's also a very big, tall 11-year-old. So like I'm 5'5" and he's like literally up to my eyebrows last we measured. He's hitting my forehead. Like it's so crazy how tall he is. And he's wearing men's smalls, like it's just so insane how he's wearing the same size shoe that I am. Like I'm not even exaggerating here. And so we were just kind of talking about little things and he's like, "Is that what I have to expect?" And it's just one of those parenting moments where I know that as a mom, and I've been doing this and navigating this whole parenthood thing for a few years. My oldest, she's actually going to be 30 on the 6th of this coming month. And, just, I mean, we're literally like almost like a week away from her birthday, right? And it's just crazy to me to think that like I've been a mom for that many years. I've parented a lot of different ways in the 30 years that I've been a parent. I biologically um, gave birth to four beautiful babies, but I've had a lot of bonus kids along the way too, whether it be friends' kids or families' children, family members' children. I was able to be a parent in a lot of different ways for a lot of different kids. And then I was also a teacher to a lot of kids. And so what I've experienced and what I've learned about different parenting styles, I've taken a lot of different parenting classes over the years. I've taken a lot of different courses and studies throughout, my college career for my teaching credentials and for just different things I was doing in AmeriCorps. And so when I think about all of the experiences I've had, I don't, I mean, I'm 45 and I became a mom to my oldest when I got pregnant with her when I was 14 and a half. And I had her right after I turned 15. I turned 15 in June and I had her in October. And I was a freshman in high school when she was born. And it's different parenting as a teen parent. You have a lot of people telling you what you should and shouldn't do. You're judged a lot. Like there's a lot of hurtful things that are said to you. Um, there's a lot of stigma that you face, and there's a lot of things you have to navigate and figure out at a really young age and still being a kid yourself. And so many people told me that I should abort her. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole different podcast. But what I will say is, as a parent, I didn't know I was pregnant with her. And our teacher, she, in 8th grade, she gave us these topics that we all had to debate. And they were very controversial topics. And she liked drama and controversy that teacher really did. She just really, I think she fed off of it. And she had abortion as one of those topics, and someone had to be pro and someone had to be con, and she chose who was what. We didn't get to choose for ourselves. Um, and so I was given the pro and why you should not, or con, sorry, the con, why you should not have an abortion. And one of my best friends at the time was given the why you should. And I personally like it's your body, your choice. And that's just truly my belief for every single thing in this world. It's like no one should be told what they should have to do with their body. And I truly do believe that because there's certain circumstances for certain things. Um, And I'm not here to debate that. What I'm here to say is that for me, I didn't want that for myself. Um I remember being the youngest of 14 and being born to a father who was in his 50s and saying a prayer to the Lord and saying, I've watched all of my siblings having children and my dad being the grandfather, that I had the best father, first of all. My dad truly was the best father figure in the whole wide world. He was so loving, he was so kind, he was so gentle. He was just such a wonderful soul, and he just treated us kids and everybody with just such a gentle heart and a gentle hand. And he was stern when he needed to be, but he was just so loving, and just, oh my gosh, being around him, you just felt so safe. You always just felt so safe. And I felt like he wasn't hurt enough by us to, like, I hope he, when he went to heaven, he, and before that, like while he was still on this earth, he knew how much we loved him. And I wanted my children to experience what I had experienced with him. And so I remember just, laying there one night after playing some sports and going to like a practice, and I was just like, dang, like all my siblings, and I knew in second grade that I would be a mom to four kids with a man named Sean, and I knew SHAWN. Like I'd had that vision, but I kind of held on to that and didn't know it. And I had just said, my dad is, I don't, is my dad ever going to see my children and like be vibrant and healthy, and like, are they going to get to be able to do the things that my nieces and nephew are doing right now? And a part of me feels like that was asking for my daughter, not knowing I was asking for my daughter, like speaking that out loud. And I just remember that feeling though. Like I really wanted my dad to be able to have that experience with my children. And I was so grateful because I had two babies. My second was born when I was 21, and my oldest was 6 years and a week old, and then my second was born. And so my dad was healthy enough to experience both of those grandchildren. And so um you just never know why your circumstances are your circumstances. And I think so many people just want to blame, and they want to, especially when you're a kid, they want to know, like, what were you thinking? And I'm just here to tell you, I was in a point in my life when I got pregnant with my daughter where I was really lost, and I wasn't doing things that were healthy for me. I was caught up in addictions. I had had no counseling or treatment for any of my trauma that I had been suffering with since I was 3 years old. And losing my sister after my sister died in a house fire in November 17th of 1988 from a coffee pot that was, wires were crossed with a well-known coffee company that still is around today. And so when I think about that, I was 9 years old and I had to grab my 3-year-old nephew and get him out of that fire so that we didn't die, and run to my dad so that if I wouldn't have told my dad, he could have possibly not be here today, been here for the time I did have him too. Like, let's be real. But like I witnessed my sister going through those flames when my dad told me to close the door because I couldn't find her, and I yelled for her and I couldn't find her. And then I told my dad I couldn't find her, but she went after her dog, and she was trying to rescue her dog. And so I felt I had a lot of guilt. I blamed myself secretly, internally for a really long time. And then I had a lot of issues with identity and trying to like figure out like what parts of me were me and what parts of me were her, and like who was I supposed to be now? Like, did I have to fill part of the void for my parents for her too? Or like what do I do? And I didn't know how to ask those questions. And I was so afraid, and I had all these emotions and all these feelings, and they were really big feelings for a 9-year-old. But nobody took the time to ask the right questions. I'm going to say it that way. It's not that they didn't ask questions, they just didn't ask the right questions, and they didn't take enough time to keep asking questions. Not drilling me per se, but just asking the right questions. Sometimes you have to phrase it differently. And I remember doing that with my own children years later. And so um, for me, I think that was a lot of it was I think they just didn't know how, and it's not anything against anyone. This today, I'm grateful for all the situations, right? But I look back now and it's such an eye opener, how important it is for us to be asking our children the right questions and not just assuming that the same question can identify the same thing. Because what I just heard from another mom too, she was saying this something very similar, and I'm like, it is so true how we can ask about the same topic, but we can ask about it like 25 different ways. And it may not be the same time when you're asking it. Like one day you're asking it this way, the next day you're asking it this way. It's a little different each time. And it's like we just gotta get, intentional with our kids. And so for me, nobody ever asked if I had a secret. Nobody ever asked if I was afraid of anything. Nobody ever asked how I was feeling. And I had been sent to a therapist for the legal purposes because we were now in this depositions and lawsuits and all these things as a 9-year-old kid. And my sister died, and I just want my sister back. But then, like, I also was scared to have my sister back because she beat my ass every single day of my life, dude. Like, she kicked my ass, and she would, like, I'd have bald spots where she'd, like, rip out my hair. Like, she was just hella mean to me, and I struggled with our relationship until the day that she died. I kid you not, and this might sound rough to some people to hear, but it's my truth. The day my sister died, November 17th of 1988, that was the one and only day that she didn't kick my ass, and she wasn't like trying to beat me up or punching me or like smacking me around or like pulling my hair, like pulling my hair out. Like, I'm not exaggerating. She was hella nice to me. And I was like, damn, maybe this would be nice if she was like this every day to me. Like, this would just be so awesome. Like, we could have such a good relationship if she were this nice all the time to me. Like, if we could just get along all the time. And it was just the most coolest day ever, I kid you not. Like, we had the best day as a family, and that night at 10 p.m. the fire started and everything changed. And as a 9-year-old kid, when you're having all those feelings like, wow, how if life could be like it was today, like it was so awesome. Every single day our family would just be amazing. You know what I mean? Like, my life wouldn't feel so daunting. Maybe I could be brave enough to share the trauma that I'd endured from people and get the help I needed, right? But like I don't know, it was just so wild to just go back and look at that because that traumatized the hell out of me, and it stuck with me for a really long time, and I felt guilty. I felt so guilty for so long being a little kid who, was molested by the neighbor kid for, 3 or 4 years. I don't even know exactly how long because it just felt like forever. And then my sister like whooped my ass every single day, of my existence pretty much. And and then she's gone and she's never coming back. And I still loved her. That's the thing. It's like we had a love-hate relationship, you know what I mean? And I was a little sister and I didn't want that to happen. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to be hurt, and so I felt really bad about that. And for a really long time I had a lot of guilt. And I thought it was my fault. You know what I mean? Like, I could have done something different. And so and then I was talking to my mom. She's 81 now, and I was talking to my mom, and it's been over 30 years, since my sister's been gone. And I was like, Mom, I didn't realize, I started writing my book. And as I'm writing my book about my life, I realized how much guilt I had still carried about that story and about even in my parenting, in my day to day, and who I am and my authenticity, And and I realized that, we hold on to so much that's not ours to bear, like the pain and the suffering that's not ours to bear. And I didn't realize how much I had a lot of blame for her death and how much I tried to, for years, put masks on, trying to be what I thought people needed me to be when I just needed to be me. And I didn't know who me was. And yes, it led me through every part of what experience I went through. the domestic violence, the alcoholism, the addictions. Just it led me through all of those situations, and it was a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of insecurity. There was a lot of doubts and a lot of fears, and all that trauma and anxiety wrapped up with all of that. I was just such an easy target to be a victim, and I put myself in that box as a victim and a category, and I didn't even know I did. And here's what's wild. It's really just my truth. This is really what's wild. About a year before, about a year and a half, 2 years before I got pregnant with my daughter, I actually had a friend that I witnessed very similar patterns of what she was doing, and I was like, "I would never do that," right? And then went and those, hormones kick in, and you have all of the trauma and all the things, and someone's telling you that they love you and they care about you, and you believe it because that's what you really want. It's really, really deep down what you feel like you're missing something, you're missing that. It's the lack of love for yourself generally. And I say that with so much love to whoever is in that situation or has gone through it. I don't mean that to hurt you. I didn't love any part of me. And so I can speak that truth is I didn't love any part of me. And what I learned was at a very young age, I turned off that because I was trying to numb everything around me. And I got into addictions at such a young age. And so going through those numbing experiences at such a very young age, um, I, I, um, I realized that I was, wearing that mask and that it was so much easier to numb it and turn it off than to just deal with it because I didn't have the tools to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so what changed in who I became, it changed my parenting style. So I went from, getting my kids and I out of the DV. My oldest was 14 when we got out. My kids were just turned 5, 8, and 14. And I got them out and we got out and and I didn't want that again. And it seemed like every time I tried to establish some sort of a new relationship, I would go back into that cycle. It'd be the same cycle. But what I didn't understand was I was still drinking and I was still caught up in some addictions and I was not working on myself and I wasn't dealing with the trauma properly. I was, yes, going to the classes. Yes, the kids and I were in counseling, but I still had the masks on. I was still wearing the masks. I was still angry at the world. I was still at a point in my life where I didn't realize that the people around me, including family, were caught up in their own addictions. They were caught up in their own messes. I had no idea that I was surrounded by siblings that were going through drug use, hardcore drug use. I had no idea. The closest siblings I had in my life, all three of them were all caught up in addictions, spouses too, and I had no idea. And so I was walking this journey thinking that I was the only one struggling, but in fact, I was just a scapegoat for them because if I was doing it, it was okay that they were doing it. So then there was like no accountability for them. So I was always the person in the family that kind of held everybody accountable and stayed the glue. But when the glue's falling apart, like the whole dynamics will fall apart. And so I didn't realize that was happening, and my mom did. She held strong for us all, and she just kept praying and praying and praying, and she just kept doing the things she needed to do. And she was just such a good mom and a good grandma, especially after my dad passed. I think my dad passing is what sent everybody into a spiral, if you really want my opinion. Nobody knew how to deal with it. And so um, I just, what changed for me was I had things in my life that made me wake up to realize I needed to be a better parent. If I was going to go through divorce and divorce somebody who was doing X, Y, and Z, then why the hell was I doing X, Y, and Z too? Still, like I was maybe not, I could handle things a little better and I wasn't all the time, but you can be an active alcoholic and not drink every day. and that's what people don't understand. And it's not even so much as drinking the actual alcohol for me, it's the cravings. It's the wanting it. It's I don't want to be I wanna crave Jesus like that, but I don't wanna crave booze like that, and that's just how I feel. And today I feel that way, but I used to not. Like, for me, I didn't have a relationship with Christ or with Jesus the way I needed to. I did not have a relationship with God the way I needed to. I was really angry at God for a lot of things. I was really angry at my mom for a lot of things. I was really angry at the world for a lot of things. I was angry at my ex-partners for a lot of things. Like, I had a lot of bitterness going on, and I was just so upset at, like, how can people treat me like this? And I was getting all these new diagnoses after being assaulted and being in the DV attack, that I was all the things that I loved doing were crumbling before my eyes. I was an athlete for most of my life, and all of a sudden, like, I can't even throw a frisbee golf disc, and I'm like, what is wrong with my body? Like, what is going on with me? I'd wake up and I would just be flared everywhere and just in extreme pain, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm trying to be a mom, and I'm trying to navigate these things, and I'm trying to parent, and I'm trying to figure it all out, and nobody has tools or resources because they just don't understand. Because I was vibrant and I was healthy and I had nothing wrong with me, and all of a sudden now I'm complaining that something's wrong with me, and they must think I want to be the center of attention or something, but in reality I was crying out for help. And it was the first time I'd ever going through the domestic violence and going through all of that was the first time I'd ever reached out and actually asked for help, in such a way that, like, it impacted our lives. And I was scared to death to ask for help because, like, the kids' birth certificates somehow got, like, I don't know if he took them or if, like, they got lost in the mix or what, but, like, we had to order new birth certificates for, all of us. They, like, all of a sudden were just gone. And so, like, we had to order new birth certificates, we had to order new Social Security cards. Like, I don't know how to navigate any of these kinds of things, and so I had to, like, ask for help. And so I was so grateful for, like, my kids' school liaison, like, their guidance counselor kind of person, because, man, I don't know what I would have done without her. And she really, like, she would take me to, like, court dates and, like, things like that, but I didn't know how to ask for help. So she was like, "Do you need this? You need this?" And she would, like, take me to places, and like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was 30 years old. I just, was right before my birthday and then turned 30, and during the mix of it, and I thought I knew so much. You know what I mean? I thought I knew so much, but something I didn't know was how to ask, and how to know when I needed to ask. And they're asking the right questions, right, phrasing them the right way, communicating, and then being receptive of the answer, and being okay with the answer no matter what the answer was. And so, like, for me, I really struggled with that for years, and so that's what held me back and kept me stuck in a lot of places where, my children, I just didn't need to be, like, point blank. And so, what really changed was, um I was forced to, change in a way. Like, and situations happened where the miscommunication put me in jail for 9 months, or for 9 days. And those 9 days, I had a lot of thinking to do because I really was scared to death to be in there, and like, I came out alive. Like, it was just not a healthy environment. And I was a mom and I felt humiliated. You know what I mean? I just felt humiliated with the idea that, like, that miscommunication put me there and it didn't have to. And so, it changed me though, because it helped me detox. It helped me see, like, what I was missing out on, but it also made me see what was the most important to me, and that was my family. And so I took the steps necessary to better my life. And when I started to do that is when I met my partner today. Once I started working on self-love and focusing on myself, was literally when my life started changing. And that's when I met my partner today. And I was still in the process of rebuilding, and when he came, and, like, and I completely forgot about, you know, what I had been told in second grade about going to be a mom with 4 kids with a man named Sean. I completely forgot about it when we started dating. it's just those things that change you, and they mold you and they shape you, and those experiences are what make us who we are today. And I started getting better because I realized how bitter I was being, but it took a point of I I had to have started becoming better, and as I started getting better, I realized how much it felt good. Like, it felt good. And that's what really started changing for me was I liked being happy. I was just so afraid to be happy. I was afraid that it wouldn't last. I was scared it wouldn't last. I was scared it was temporary and that I couldn't get it back, like, because it just felt so good. But what I didn't realize, it was the environment I was placing myself in, the different environments. Environments play a role too. It's not just you. Environments, they can mold and shape you just as much as you mold and shape yourself. And so they played such a huge role. And so once I removed myself and my kids from like people we were hanging out with that just weren't healthy for us and changed that environment, the whole world opened up. Like, not even joking, the whole world opened up, and it just became such a more peaceful, happier, loving place. And so, and it's nothing against anyone. It's just what happened to us and what was for us. And so he came into our lives and he just kind of shook it up a little bit. And then we found out we were going to be parents again. He was going to be a dad. And for the first time, and I was gonna have a baby, and we were both told we couldn't, and this little miracle came, and in the process, I broke my back 10 days before delivering him. I ruptured that L4-5 disc in my spinal cord, and I wasn't heard, and they made me deliver him naturally. This is all part of the parenting process that I had to go through, that so many people don't talk about, the things that we do for our children. It's amazing what our bodies can handle. It is amazing what we do for them. But my body hit a breaking point. And because of that DV assault in 2009, um, I didn't realize my son was over 10 pounds. He was such a big boy. And so because he was so big, he ruptured that L4-5 disc. And they didn't hear what I was saying and listening to me. And your body, you get to know your body over time. And if you're really, really being that in tune and becoming in tune with it and starting to love yourself more and do these things, right? But I was still so scared, and delivering him was hard. It was so hard, and it just was things that happened were unnecessary. But as a mom, I had a really hard time with all my kids. I was able to do things and care for them and breastfeed and all of these things. And with him, I was put on a restriction for weight limits that I could hold and carry. And he was bigger than that weight limit. So somebody would have to bring him to me and sit him on a pillow on my lap. There was just a lot of things that made it really hard for me to parent in that season, but I don't regret any of it because it showed me how strong I am on the inside and the outside. And he is just an amazing child today, and I couldn't imagine our lives without him. Like, he is just so freaking awesome, right? He's just such a blessing, and he was what we were missing. He really was that person or that link in our family that we were missing. And so, like, youth, I think about that. And what I also noticed is my parenting style has changed over the years. So in the DV cycle, there was a lot of spankings. There was a lot of like stern voice and yelling and smacking of the hands, and like a lot of those things that you hear in the child books, a lot of those things that you're taught in, different things. And oh my gosh. Um, but as a teacher, we obviously, you're not allowed to be smacking kids and spanking them around and stuff, right? So from a very, very young mom, I learned right away how to parent my daughter, my first one, without all of the stuff, without all of that. There's a time and a place to get your butt paddled. There's a time and place to pop the hand, things of that nature, right? But um, there was so much stupid, I'm just gonna call it out, and if I offend somebody, too bad. I'm not trying to, like, don't be offended. This is just, we live and learn. But there's so many stupid parenting techniques that I had been taught over, either from me being a child or from being a young parent, that were just ridiculous, that I never really bought into. And I was always questioning why, but I sometimes did them anyways, just because, they said the experts said that they would work, or an older family member would say that they would work. And none of them worked, man. Like, I was just always, it just made me feel awful to spank them. I didn't like none of that crap. And so I was just like, what the heck am I missing out on, like, as a parent? Like, what am I missing? And as I got out of that DV cycle and got into different parenting styles, I realized that kids just are younger versions of us, and they just want to be heard, and they struggle sometimes with communication just like we do. What really made me realize all of this was getting my traumatic brain injury. I know this sounds really crazy, but that domestic violence assault gave me a traumatic brain injury. It didn't trigger until after the trauma from my childbirth. And then after the childbirth trauma, my whole body went kind of crazy. Okay. I'm not going to lie. It just started going haywire. When your body's going haywire and you have a TBI and you don't know about it or anything, and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and you're not being heard by people, and you're being misunderstood, and you're being like kind of yelled and reprimanded, and like shit's like just not right, right? It's not right. It doesn't feel right. Um, you realize what children experience too. You truly can relate, because I started parenting different when I started being treated different, if that makes sense. From when the injury really, when I was struggling in that time period, when the injury was really hammering my body and my brain, um and I was misunderstood a lot. And I was getting really frustrated from it. You know how little kids throw tantrums? I kind of felt like that. And it's hard, and it's frustrating. And you don't lock them up in playpens. You don't leave them in a room by themselves to deal with it. You don't you don't yell at them. You don't spank on them, smack them around. What you do is you say, I hear you and I understand you, and I'll be right here when you're ready to calmly communicate with me, and I'll take as long as you need. But see, people don't have that kind of patience generally. We're such an instantaneous world. We tell everybody to knock it off, buck it up, buttercup, deal with it. You got yourself into this mess. You can calm down right now. I'm going to beat your ass. Don't make me spank you. Right? We think that, like, that's going to solve it and that's going to fix it. And it's so the opposite. That love and nurture that people need in that moment when they are so overwhelmed and so overstimulated, and they've just lost that self control. You may not be able to touch them in that moment, right? But you can verbalize really calmly in a loving way. And they may tell you to F off. They don't want your help at the time. But I promise you, when they calm down, they will. I promise you, almost every single time when they calm down, they just need to know that you didn't give up on them. And so many people gave up on me. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. So many people gave up on me and failed me in moments when I really needed them, but I forgive them and I understand today, because it's not everybody can handle it. And as a parent, it's hard. And if you're worried that it's too much for you, call a friend, call a family member and say, hey, I need help. And people shouldn't judge you for needing help. Kids and are just like adults, and sometimes we don't have the answers. Sometimes we don't know what they want or what their needs are. And sometimes they just need a good cry, a good kick and a good scream. I mean, it happens. But usually when they're screaming and they're crying and they're yelling and getting loud, it's because they feel like they're not being heard. They're overstimulated. Their fears kicking in. Because wouldn't you be afraid if, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be hurt again? See, with a lot of us, We don't realize it's just a temporary, like, we're listening, but maybe we're busy and doing something at the moment. Like, give us a few minutes. Little kids don't understand time all the time. My kids are still figuring out the time and how long it takes. Lyrics get so frustrated with things, and we're like, calm down. It's only been a minute. He's like, it's been 5, it's been 15. No, it's been like 1 minute, and it's been 5 minutes. It hasn't been 25. Like, we have to remind ourselves that just because we get it doesn't mean they get it. And sometimes we won't get it, but someone else will get it. And it's that reassurance that we can parent people with love. We can parent children in a way that doesn't make them feel less than. I can't tell you how many times that I was told when I was little to go get a Switch. One kid would get in trouble and my parent would say, go, my mom, she'd be like, go get a Switch, because that's what she was taught. She was taught that if one kid got out of line when she was a kid, if one kid in the group got out of line or did something they weren't supposed to, every single kid got their butt busted. Why? Because they were going to get their ass busted because they couldn't prove that none of the other ones didn't do it too. Like, you're all going to get in trouble. You better keep that one out of trouble so you don't get in trouble. It's pretty much how they did it when she was a kid. She did the same thing with us kids. That's horrible. I find myself getting my butt blistered with a switch for like no reason. And I was pissed. A little kid that happened to, I was pissed. I did not like that. So I spent a few days, I was getting little switches, and those little switches hurt, man. Woo! Little willows, or we had bamboo. Oh my God. Those things hurt. And they leave, welts and shit, and this is, parenting back in the 70s and 80s. And I'm telling you, like, it was so different. And I spent 5 days digging up a big old 20, 25 foot, big old round bamboo stump. And I had that sucker ready. I hit a shovel and I dug that up. So the next time my mom said for us to go get a switch, I dragged that damn thing across the yard. Little bitty 3, 4 year old kid. I dragged that thing across the yard. She said, what the hell are you doing? I said, got my switch. Spank me with it. She couldn't, it was too big. From that day on, she never asked us to get a switch. Like, it was a lesson for everybody. It was not the way to go, and I taught that lesson to him, a little 3 or 4 year old kid. I just decided that I wasn't going to be spanked no more for not doing something. I didn't do it, so if I didn't do it, why should I get spanked? So if I bring a big one and she can't spank, it's the spank. This she tells us, go get your stick, your switch. I'm gonna spank you with it, and I went and got it, and she can't spank me with it, then she can't spank me with it, right? And it worked. I mean, I thank the Lord it worked, and she learned, well, I better stop telling these kids to do that. She went about it to where she started reprimanding each kid for who did it. I'm telling you, like, you just for me, it's we learn from our parents. We learn from the parenting styles. We learn, what was that one for a long time? You want to wash your mouth out with soap if you're cussing, right? And I will never forget. I thought I could try that technique on one of my kids, and the kid liked the damn soap. I'm like, what? It didn't work. Yeah, they started flavoring soaps and changing. It didn't work. He liked the soap. And so I learned real fast that was a dumb one. Why would I be doing that anyways? Making it they're sick, like just the dumbest things, dude. And it just always tripped me out how everybody's okay with them and so many people did them. And so when I started changing my parenting style, it started changing the dynamics of the partner relationship too I had with my spouse. Because not only was I changing my parenting style, but I was asking them to change theirs. Um, and it didn't go smoothly. Obviously, the second marriage ended in DV and the first marriage ended in divorce. So obviously those didn't go very smooth when I tried to change those things. But with my partner today, we are such like we parent so different. We've never parented this way with our kids, even our grown kids, the way that our parents parented. You know what I mean? And it's so different, but the relationships are better. I feel like they're stronger. The kids know they like how they would be parents or how they will be, their aunts and uncles today, because Megan, my oldest, has all the babies, right? And then my bonus daughters have all their babies. So they're the aunts and the uncles, and so they don't, the three younger kids don't have any children. And so they get to love on other, people's kids basically. And then there's my niece and my nephew who have kids because I helped raise them too. And so, they have their kiddos. And so like, it's just such a different dynamic today. And it's just so, it feels safer. It feels better. It feels healthier. And the relationships are stronger, like we can talk about anything. They don't have to have a fear to come to me and talk to me about something. And for a long time with my niece, because I raised her from 12 to 21, and then Megan, and Megan was at home till she was 18. And so I had, my oldest and my niece, and they were just a few years apart. Um and so I was so afraid to parent them too, because they were a lot like me. They had that outgoingness like I did, and they just had been through a lot of stuff too, and themselves. And so they were a lot like me, and it just was wild to me. Like it was just wild to me, um what 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 I realized, that I was like parenting them out of fear, if that makes sense. Like I was really parenting them out of fear. And that fear like put a strain on our relationship because I was so afraid that they were going to get pregnant like I did. And I was so afraid that I was going to screw up. It wasn't that they were going to screw up. I was afraid of me screwing things up because I was so young. She was 21 when she came to live with me. My second baby had just been born, you know what I mean? Like she was 21, or she was 12, almost 13, and I was 21. And I was just scared to death that I was gonna now have to raise this teenager, and I did not know how to raise teenagers because I sucked at being a teenager. Like, I screwed up in every area being a teenager, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?" And so, it was freaking scary, and I did my best, and we did our best, and we all grew up together, and we learned together, and we got through it. We learned from our mistakes. We learned from the things that we could improve to be better parents today, to be better people today. Like, I'm grateful for them girls for, still loving me today and respecting me as a person. And just like, I'm just so grateful they're in my life today because, like I said, I made a lot of mistakes, and I wasn't perfect, but I learned so much from it today to be a better mom today to my other kids too, and then to my nieces and my great nieces and nephews and my grandbabies. And like I get to be a healthy adult and role model for them today. And that to me is the best, because we forget how important that is sometimes when we're in the midst of the addictions and the alcoholism and like all of the things and the trauma. We forget how much they need us, how much they really need us. And so when you get out of that and you're sober, and by the grace of God, I've been sober since Christmas of 2017. And when you're out of it for a while, like, oh my goodness, the changes that happen, the more you recognize your power, and your willpower, and the way you, like, the cravings lessen. I, for a long, long time, had those cravings that they would just bother me for alcohol, and to not have those now is just such a blessing. There are moments, I'm not going to say it's always going to go away. I will always I will always ask to be sober. I will always be grateful for every moment that I am. And, and I don't set myself up for failure. I think that's the thing. It took me a while before I could be around alcohol or people who are having a glass of wine or a couple drinks, whatever, right? Today I can, and I'm grateful. I always tell people, they're like, "Well, it's just one glass." And I'm like, "You know what? That's the difference in how I know you're not an alcoholic and I am, because I can never just see it as one glass." And so, I pray, my husband told me too, he said, "I pray that one day you do. Like, I pray that one day you can see it as just a glass of wine." And I pray for that too. It doesn't mean I'm gonna drink the glass of wine, it just means that I'm changing that pattern in my brain, right? That mindset that's just shifting, and so, you never know what road you're gonna be on and where what journey it's gonna take you on. But what I know for me is that I'm just grateful I'm the parent that they need me to be today, and the grandparent and the aunt, and I can be there to help them with things. I can be there to love them. And I don't let the things that should limit me limit me. I think that's all mindset, and it's all a decision that I make, and it's listening to my body. I am a big person on listening to my body. If my body needs extra sleep, it's going to get extra sleep. If my body needs a rest day, it's going to take a rest day. If my body is so exhausted to where dinner time comes around, no matter what dinner I have planned, like if I can't do it and I can't pull it off, then I will give my body what it needs. I won't force it anymore. Um, and I'm grateful that I do that. So most of the time when I plan events or parties, I prep days in advance. I don't do it all in the same day. I prep days in advance because I don't want to feel like garbage the day of and be like, "Oh, I can't do this." I have learned. And so you learn your body, you learn who you are, you learn your parenting style. This is just a journey that we're on, and we're going to make mistakes throughout the whole journey from the beginning to like all the way, right? All the way. And but people are so focused on the destination always. Okay, when I get there, I'll have this. When I get there, it'll feel much better. When I get to this point, it's going to be great. When I get over here, it'll be wonderful. Oh, I'll do everything will be all good once I'm finally there. No, 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 no. Right now. It's great right now. Everything is awesome right now. It's so incredible how everything is just aligning so that it'll all just align for the whole journey, right? You got to tell yourself that you're on a journey, and it's the now. You can take that future self and those goals and be like, yeah, I'm going to live like they're right here right now. So there's little things that we can do. Like my life coach was saying, take yourself to the restaurant once a month. If you would love to go dining once a week, but you just know you can't afford that, go once a month. Like instead of ordering pizza, go out to a restaurant and spend that money on an actual restaurant and go out and socialize and get yourself in the atmosphere of what you really want and enjoy. Don't settle for less. And I think that's really what it comes down to is we're a world of just settling, settling, settling. I'll take this because it's attainable because that other one seems like it's so far off, right? Um, it's I used to be a settler, and I used to just settle for less than I deserved always. And what happens is I set a standard for people around me to manipulate me, to take advantage of me, to just really change some of the trajectory of my future, of my life. And because I was allowing it, right? I was able to make that shift though. And now I'm able to be able to hold the the power to that because I took back the power, right? But for a long time, those people were taking and really just there was a lot of take and not a lot of give. And so um you have to decide like what kind of person do you want to others to believe in who you are, like, and it's not about like pride or ego or being like better than everybody else. It's like it's loving yourself so gracefully and so unapologetically that if people can't respect you and they can't appreciate the person that you are, you understand it doesn't matter. And it's not that you have to be like, Peace out, I'm never going to talk to you again." No, you just have to have a sense of knowing that it doesn't matter. If you walk into a room and nobody talks to you, it doesn't matter. If you walk into a room and everybody talks to you, it doesn't matter. It's walking into a room and knowing who you are, and that sense of self-confidence and self-awareness is who you are, and you love you, so it doesn't matter if anybody in that same room gives one F about you. It doesn't matter because you care about you, and that's all that matters. And it might sound selfish to some people, but you have to understand that self-image is always your perception of how you view yourself. And if you have a crappy self-image, you'll have so much lack of self-confidence. Your self-esteem will be down the drain, right? So many people struggle with that and they don't even know it's their self image. And parenting, we have to have a healthy self image. As a parent, we're teaching our children going into puberty and going into all these different life lessons. Would you want them to not love themselves? Think about your teenager, your child, even if they're little right now. Imagine them hitting a point where they tell you they think they're ugly or they think they're too fat or they think they're little and they're like, I need a diet. I need to, get plastic surgery so I look better. I need a new nose. You imagine if your children were saying this, I would just feel like, what the heck just happened here? And who taught you these things? Where did you find these things? And social media is going to show them all kinds of crap, right? But, like, they hear this from school nowadays, and so, like, you have kids with eating disorders and kids with, violence going on all around them, and just so much stuff is going on, and we're just trying to keep them safe. We're just trying to be the right parent, and it can just be so scary to navigate it, I thought parenting my kids way back when, 20 years ago, even shoot, 10 years ago was rough. It can be hard today. But it starts at home and it starts with you and it starts with how you're teaching them to love themselves from the inside out, not the outside in, the inside out. One thing my mother always used to tell me was beauty is skin deep. And she used to say, beauty is skin deep. She said, people don't realize that we're all made the same on the inside. Like what you see on the outside isn't as important as what you see on the inside. And it's the way you have compassion and love for other people. It's the way you treat people. It's the way that your character, your integrity. Like so many people are looking at the looks and they're not looking at the rest of the package. And it's so important that, we understand that our children just, they need our love. They need to know that we're there with them 100% to support them no matter what they're going through, what questions they have. Tough questions we'll answer together. I told my kids, if I don't know the answer, I'll help you find it. Like I truly do believe that as a parent, that there's just so much society like puts so much pressure on us and we're either working our butts to the bone to provide or we're struggling with something because we can't afford it or this and that. There's so much lack going on, and when the lack happens in our lives it impacts our children, it impacts generations. And so my thing as a parent that I've learned is my working on myself is priority. When I started working on my mindset and on my spirituality, and I started working on my relationship with Jesus, I started working on healing from the 37 years of trauma that I had packaged up in a little box. And then I started making tough decisions that involved saying no to a lot of people. Um, my children started shifting too. They started having healthier relationships, ending toxic relationships, talking more and healing their wounds and their trauma, being willing to show up for themselves and love themselves more, starting to dream and have an imagination again about what they want in their lives, who they want in their lives, what they want to do with them for themselves, careers and, just so much change has happened over the course of the last 5 years when I started doing the work. And we are the models, whether we want to hear that or not, we are the models. It doesn't matter which parent you are. It doesn't matter if you're the grandparent, the aunt, the uncle, the cousin, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what label you're wearing. If you're an adult, you're a role model. If you're a teenager, you're a role model. And I think that that's literally what people need to start recognizing is everybody influences everybody. And I remember walking down the street or watching a show and seeing something and being influenced. And so how are you behaving? How are you treating people? What is it that you want to change about your style of parenting? What would better and improve you as an individual? You have to understand that even if you're not a parent, you could still be giving direction, like I said, role modeling guidance to someone else. Very similar to parenting. Very, very similar. And so the world is a ripple effect. And we really do impact each other. We can. And so I could go on and on about parenting. What I want to tell you is love is the foundation of it all. If you can unconditionally love them through it all, it's going to all work out. And that really is even the hard stuff. You're going to look back at that hard stuff and realize how grateful you were you made it through it. First of all, how grateful you were that you loved each other through it. And you're going to look back at some of those tough times and you're going to kind of go, "Dang, we did that." Like how brave of us. How courageous of us. Like we went through so much hard stuff, but look, we're on the other side now. And then you're going to be able to help somebody going through it so that they don't have to endure it. We're going to have some other episodes talking about a little bit more into just ways that you can support people going through something, whether it's a teen parent. I know so much resources have changed over the 30 years since I was a teen parent. It's amazing how many grants have faded away for a lot of those kids that were going through those tough times that really needed it, that really helped me get through high school, helped me as a teen mom get through a lot of things and taught me a lot. They just don't have those anymore. And so a lot of the programs they had to help those kids graduate, um, the world's changed a lot. And so I know that it's definitely a lot of those moms and dads are dropping out and they're having to go on and find other ways to make it work. But you know what? They're doing it. And I just give props and kudos to anybody who's parenting on any way, shape, or form because it's not an easy task, but it sure does mold and shape you into a better person if you let it. And it is such an amazing experience watching them as an adult, and then them becoming a parent or them being in that role, right? It is just so incredible, like to see how strong and the things that they learned and taught me since me being their parent, like how they learn things that they didn't want to teach their kids. And I give them mad respect for choosing to better themselves and better their families. Like I said, nobody is perfect. And so I just think it's the most incredible thing that I can be a part of their lives and be that grandparent for my grandbabies and have those healthy relationships. And so don't ever be afraid to step out of the box. Don't ever be afraid to do something that someone says you cannot do. It is amazing what happens when you rip those labels off and you just start being a good human. Hope you guys have a great day and I hope this inspires somebody.